Hey guys, let's get straight to the point. Today I'm going to show you guys how I color graded the footage from the FX30 S-Log3 into this Asteroid city look. So I was filming on the rooftop of my apartment and I have the camera pointing at the sky because I did not have any buildings that is similar to the movie Asteroid City, unfortunately in my city. So I opt to have a clear sky background. It was a really sunny day and you notice that the sun is kind of at a 45-degree on my left-hand side of my face, shining onto my face. It was really sunny, so I was trying really hard to keep my eyes open. The look of Asteroid City is really unique because a lot of them are actually really flat. So you don't really see a lot of dimensions when it comes to shadows. And especially in these are like frontal lit by, I assume there's a light at the front, and you can see that the shadow is directly on top of his face. This is really important because you want a flat look in this color grading process. And another thing you want to try to do whenever you're recreating a look is to have somewhat similar outfit to fit the theme of the color grade. So I opt to have a pastel pink kind of shirt, and I had this hat right here because I remember seeing a person in the movie with a similar hat, kind of. So I have a better reference. The hat that I was wearing was kind of off-white when it comes to color. So this is the look with the sky and also a really flat kind of shadows image. Let's take a look at the DaVinci Resolve settings first. I do this all the time now. This is, I think, my third video about color grading. So this is the setting, or the settings of my project. This is my first time using DaVinci Wide Color Gamut. So I have the color science to set to DaVinci Wide RGB, same thing as before, but this is different. This is the timeline color space. It's in DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. I want to try using Wide Color Gamut because a lot of people said that it has a lot more color information that you can work with. So this is the setting. You can take a screenshot and then copy the settings. In the color grading page, this is my note tree. I know this is a lot more complicated than before, but we'll jump into it right away so I can show you step by step, and I'll try to make this video shorter. I'm just gonna go through all the notes really quickly. I'm gonna turn them off. This is the original image straight out of the camera with S-Log3 422 10-bit from the FX30. I had a KNF Concept 229 stop variable ND filter on it because it was really sunny, and I actually had to stop it down to still f8 around f5.6 or f8 around that kind of aperture in order to not overexpose anything. If you remember from my previous videos, I much prefer not overexposing anything because any highlights that are clipped are gone. So I try not to have anything overexposed. So let's get started. The first thing we have to do is to convert this S-Log3 image into a proper color space so we can work with something that is not as flat as this. This is super flat. You can see that everything is compressed in the scopes. We have a input color space transform node here. We just need to open up the effects tab on the top right corner, search for color space transform, and then you drop the effect onto this node right here. Once you have that there, you can see that I have the input color space as Sony S-Log3.cine, that's for S-Log3, and then we have Sony S-Log3 as the input gamma, of course. Output color space is DaVinci Wide Gamut, and output gamma is DaVinci Intermediate because we're working with the wide gamut in the settings. This is the input. So what happened is we will convert this into DaVinci Wide Gamut, and then we'll convert it back to whatever that we want to work with. So once this is turned on, you don't see much. It doesn't really do anything until you use the output color space transform, which is right here. So here we have the input space as wide gamut and then input gamma set to DaVinci Intermediate because that's what happened or what we did in the input color space transform. And then I converted the image to Rec. 709 to work with Rec. 709, and I have it set to Cineon Film Lock. That is because I'm going to use a Kodak LUT built in DaVinci Resolve to make it more of like a film look. So once this is converted, we have somewhat regular image compared to before. So this is after the input color space transform and output color space transform. The next thing we're gonna do is, you know that already, we have to use a LUT in order to convert it into an even more proper image to work with. So we have the Kodak 2383 right here. This is the node. All you need to do is to go to the LUTs page on the top left corner, and we'll go to film looks. And at the bottom, we have Kodak 2383, just like that. You just choose the one that is workable for your image, basically based on the color temperature, because some of them are cooler, some of them are warmer. So once you drop the LUT onto here, you can see that it's now converted into a really contrasty and saturated look. This is what we're gonna work with, but bear with me because it's gonna be fine. We're gonna create that pastel kind of unsaturated look. The next node that we have besides the input color space is noise reduction. I always have it on my FX30 or Sony ZV-1 images because they are APS-C sensor and also 1-inch sensor. They always have some kind of noise. Sorry, the traffic is really loud outside of my apartment. So there's always some noise in the image, as you can see. If I turn this off, if you focus on the parade scopes at the bottom, you can see that it cleans up a lot of stuff, especially in the darker area. So the settings of my noise reduction is frame set to 1. Here the threshold is 10. I will unlink this on this side and then set the chroma noise reduction to 7 or 6-ish kind of. So that way the image is cleaner but not unsharpened. The next note here, this is specifically for Sony cameras. If you have the FX30, the A7 IV, pretty much like any Sony camera, they have a problem of having like yellowish kind of tint on, especially skin tone, but it's generally the whole image. So I have this fixed yellow kind of note here. You can just copy it. What happened is I have the hue versus hue, and I have the orangey kind of color pushed upward, so that means it's going toward red. So I am fixing the yellow greenish tint to orangey yellow or even red kind of zone. So that way the skin tone will look healthier, basically. So once it's applied, it's really subtle, but you can definitely see the difference. So this is off. You can see that my face is really yellowish kind of green. Once this is done, it's a little bit healthier with a little bit of a pink in my skin tone. The next one, white balance, I did not use, or I did not do anything to it because it was a daytime when I was filming this, and I had the color temperature set to 5600, yes, the white balance set to 5600 Kelvin on my FX30, so I didn't have to fix it. But if you somehow have the white balance off a little bit, just fix it here. With the S-Log3 10-bit footage from the FX30 or any 10-bit color camera, the footage should be able to handle white balance change a little bit. It's not raw, but it's fine. For exposure, this is basically brightening up the image, brightening up the shadows a little bit. You can definitely take a look at my settings here. I literally just boost up the shadows a little bit. So this is completely up to you. If you have the image properly exposed, you should be fine. Again, I try not to clip any highlights. That's the rule of thumb that I have, at least. The next node is the curve node. This is where you get the unsaturated, pale pastel kind of look here. This is the curve that I have created. So I have the bottom shadows lifted a little bit because in the movie you can see that the shadows are quite lifted, at least the scenes that I like. And then I have, again, the shadows lifted right here. This is a little bit closer to the midtones, so this part is also lifted. And I have the midtone or the middle exposed area of the image dragged down, and then the highlight, somewhere close to highlights between midtones and the highlight, drag down as well. You might notice this is a reverse S-curve. Before, if you have a regular S-curve, it goes like an S shape, which will make the image even more contrasty. And I have highlights drag down, like the brightest part of the image drag down a little bit, just to protect the highlight and make it even more pastel-like. So this is the curve that makes everything kind of flat and pastel-y. A reverse S-curve, basically. So after this, you can see that the shadows are lifted and the highlights are dragged down a little bit, so you have way less contrast on my face. If I turn it off, you can see that my face is extremely contrasty because this is how the image was captured. But after you've done the reverse S-curve, this is how it looks like. It's already looking really good, but we still need to fix the colors. Under saturation, I have nothing because I didn't want to do anything to the saturation. I think this is okay. This is a little bit more pastel, kind of unsaturated look. I was watching the movie and I saw that like at least the scenes in the desert, they weren't that saturated. So that's why I did not increase the saturation because of what I was wearing. So if you are wearing something a lot more saturated, you might want to desaturate it here, but I didn't do anything. Midtones detail, this is exactly the same as before. We have it set to -20 here at the bottom left, just to make the skin a little bit smoother, especially my skin. Like my skins are not the best. So this is before. You can see that it's a little bit rougher after the midtone details are lowered. Sharpness, this one I always have it set to a little bit sharper if I need more details in the image because I was a little bit further away from the camera, and also we have quite a bit of noise reduction applied. So sharpness, I had it set to 0.47, that it's gonna sharpen the image because it starts at 0.5 and it's not going to be super obvious, but of course it really depends on the look that you're trying to create. If you want to create something that is even more vintage blurry, then you might want to bump it up to, let's say 0.52. That's usually how I do it if the image is too sharp or the lens is too sharp. So that's the basic correction of the image after the conversion. So now let's create the look. With the look, the first note that I usually have is to basically balance the image so it looks more natural. And for this one, I have it a little bit more extreme because in the movie, there was a lot of sand. So basically, you have a lot of reflection from the sand when the sunlight or whatever light that they were using, most likely they're like daylight balance. It bounces off the sand and makes the whole image yellow, especially on the subject or the buildings. So what happened is you can literally copy this. As I said, I don't sell LUTs, I don't sell presets. Just copy the settings and play around with it and then try to see if you can recreate the look and recreate the look. And you can let us know if you have successfully created something similar. We'll be more than happy to check them out. Here we have the offset, basically the global color tone. It's dragged to the yellowish green kind of area. And then I have my skin tone, basically gamma, which is skin tone, mid-tone, kind of going to the opposite, because if I don't do this, the entire image, including the skin tone, will be really greenish yellow. So that's not good. So I brought some magenta back by dragging this gamma the opposite way of the offset. And then we have blue saturation. This one is a little bit tricky. We have it set to basically what filled most of the frame. In this particular shot right here, I have the saturation of the blue sky way higher than it was, just to make sure that the sky is more obvious. Because if you look at the frames from the movie, the sky is really saturated. They really leaned towards the saturated blue sky kind of tone. So that's why I had this So once I turn this on, you can see that the sky is much more saturated. That's the power of DaVinci Resolve. You can basically, or like a lot of other video editors, that they allowed you to just isolate a color and increase the saturation or change the hue. One thing you need to pay attention is I did not just set the point here and then 2 other points and pull this middle point up as high as I can, because that way it will make it less natural, because between the blue sky and the darker blue and green, if you have a really sudden spike, then it will break the image potentially, and also it will not look as gradient as right now. It's kind of changing smoothly from blue to darker blue and blue to green. This is the way to do it. I have 2 extra points just to make this curve smoother. So no sun spikes, that's my tip. And then the next note is the teal sky, because if you look at the images from the movie, they have a really teal-ish kind of sky, but not blue. So this is how I did it. I have the hue versus hue, basically shifting the color blue to something else, which is teal that we're trying to do. What you're gonna do is you have to push this point up, basically shifting the blue toward green so it lands in the middle, and that is teal. And don't overdo it, because if you overdo it, it will be really weird and you might have a broken image again. So this is super subtle. I don't know if you can even tell on YouTube. So this is after, this is before. It's there, trust me, it's there. And then I have red saturation. That is because I believe, if I remember it correctly, I need to increase the red because the global look, remember this global offset, I have everything set to really yellow greenish. So I kind of have to balance it out. And also in the movie, the reds are quite vibrant. So I had to increase the saturation of red by going into hue versus sat. That means the saturation of the color. I have red picked up or picked out. I again did the multi-point thing. I think I can delete this point, but I forgot to do so. So you just need these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Usually 5 points are good enough, unless you really need to do micro adjustments. I have it increased to about this level. Again, you can copy all the numbers here. I don't mind at all. Not as high as the blue saturation increase, but after I turn this on, you can probably see that everything, it's back to this like kind of healthier kind of look. The shirt, it's a little bit more vibrant. My lips are a little bit more saturated. So that's why we had the red saturation. And then I had yellow saturation. Here, again, the movie scenes are extremely yellow, teal, orange, in those kind of realms. So I have the yellow saturation increased. After I turn this on, you can see that on my face, it really looks like that I was in the desert, which I'm really happy about the result. You can see that on my hat. If I turn this off, my hat was kind of off-white, but after I turn this on, it's quite yellow. So that's the look that I really, really like. So these are all the colors adjustments that I did. Let me check this one right here. Oh, this one right here, it's turning the yellow towards orange a little bit more. So if I turn this on, the yellow will go towards orange a little bit more. That is probably because, again, my global offset was really green and the Sony green is really sipping into the skin tone. So if I don't turn this, or if I don't have this adjustment, it'll be kind of greenish yellow still. So I have it adjust from yellow towards a little bit more orange here. These are micro adjustments, but you can copy any numbers you see in this color grading process to apply it to your image. I know sometimes I have to do micro adjustments behind or after certain looks, but that's just the way I did it. halation or halation, we have a FX, of course, or FX. You can just search for halation, and then drop it onto the node. I had it set up like this. You can see that my skin brightened up like that because of certain brightness or contrast in the scene. So if you want to take a look at the settings, you're more than welcome to do so. Here is the settings. Basically, it's exactly the same every time I apply halation, so I don't even bother like setting them up like individually. But of course, if you want to do micro adjustments, do that. So this is the settings. You can take a look and copy everything. If I zoom out, this is before halation applied. This is after. Everything brightens up because it was a really sunny day, as I said. Anything that is super bright, halation will affect it, or high contrast at least. That way you see that everything brightens up. If you have edges that is high contrast, you have this like yellow, not yellow, like reddish kind of fringing happening. But I don't think you can see it here. It's not too obvious in this image because it's not a high contrast scene, but it's there if it's a high contrast scene. So these are the conversion node. The last thing that we're gonna do, of course, is to add grain. For some reason, the grain was not that heavy in the movie, at least when I was watching it in the theater. But you can go to the effects tab and search for grain, drop it onto this node right here, and I was using the 35mm 400T grain as usual, and then these are the settings. I can turn it on and you can see that it adds quite a bit of grain. I kind of like it grainy because it's a vintage look. So these are the numbers. You just copy them and apply it to your image. So this is how I created or color graded this look to make it look like Asteroid City or Wes Anderson's look. I know a lot of YouTube videos have already talked about this, but this is my approach and I think it worked out really, really well. A lot of people actually really like this look. And if you want to see the video part, like the video version of this in action, then you can follow me on Instagram. I have it posted and I added the music from the movie. It was from Instagram, so it was not having a copyright thing. And it looked really, really well, or really, really good, because I can't really play it here. I have a Mac that cannot take this many notes all at once to play back the video smoothly, so I can't really play it here. But again, follow my Instagram and you will see the actual footage. Let's try to turn off everything again. This is before S-Log3 10-bit 422 from the FX30. So if you have anything that is close to that generation of Sony cameras, FX3, FX6, Sony A7S3, A7IV, A7R5, you should have similar S-Log3 kind of color or color space that you can apply this look to it. So I will turn this on and there you have it. I really like this color palette or the color grading color grade that I've created for this particular look, and I think I will film a project with my friend with this look in there. So definitely stay tuned and I'll post it in, of course, on my YouTube channel and also on my Instagram account. If you have any comment or questions, leave them in the comment section below. Let us know if you like this process or if you like this kind of tutorials, and if you can successfully create this look with this tutorial, definitely keep us updated. If you want more tutorial like this, let us know in the comment section below as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.